Willow Bend Acres looked like a suburban dream. Wide, tree-lined streets curved gently through neat rows of homes. Each property boasted a manicured lawn, a matching mailbox, and well-trimmed shrubs hugging pristine windows. The air carried the scent of freshly mowed grass, and most residents wore friendly smiles as they went about daily life. Yet beneath that picture-perfect calm lurked a subtle tension. A tension that, if one looked close, revealed itself in the watchful eyes of Veronica Farnell. In her mid-50s, Veronica was a senior member of the Willow Bend Homeowners Association. Tall and sharply dressed, she insisted on meticulous standards for every front yard or shared space. Most neighbors referred to her by name in public, but privately, she'd earned the nickname Karen. It was a moniker whispered in exasperation whenever she brandished her clipboard or threatened fines over minor infractions. She believed wholeheartedly that Willow Bend Acres was her personal domain to police. Few dared challenge Veronica head-on. Some tried to stay out of her way, while others carefully adhered to the myriad HOA rules to avoid confrontation. However, children were less mindful of that tense undercurrent. They only saw the neighborhood as a place to ride bikes, play tag, and shoot hoops on a small basketball court near the community playground. On warm evenings, the sound of bouncing balls and shouts of three-pointer filled the air, a joyful contrast to the hush of immaculate lawns. Veronica Farnell, though, found the basketball court an ongoing annoyance. It was situated on a slender patch of asphalt behind the playground, ringed by a chain-link fence. For years, kids had used it for pickup games, sometimes after dinner time. Veronica considered it a nuisance that disturbed the peace. The ball's repetitive thudding echoed down her street, which happened to be the closest row of houses to the court. HOA board documents indicated that the court was built well before Veronica's watchful involvement, thanks to the fundraising efforts of former residents who wanted kids to have an active outlet. The asphalt was old but serviceable, with chipped paint lines and a slightly uneven surface. The chain-link fence stood about 6 feet high, preventing most runaway basketballs. Despite the court's minor wear, local families and teenagers cherished it as a free, convenient place to play. Veronica, on the other hand, saw it as an eyesore and a noisemaker. More than once, she'd suggested the HOA remove the hoops or lock the gate at certain hours. But each time, parents objected. They cited the positive impact of giving kids a safe environment for sports. The rest of the board hesitated to wage war on an amenity that had broad community support. Thus, the court remained, though Veronica never stopped complaining. She sent letters to certain families, scolding them for letting their kids stay too late or reminding them about noise regulations. She even threatened to push for a daily closure time. For the moment, though, the ball still bounced, kids still laughed, and life in Willow Bend Acres ambled on. Unaware of the storm that would soon erupt, courtesy of one determined Karen, who thought she could control everything. Nearly every afternoon once school let out, a small crowd of children flocked to the basketball court. Some came with brand-new sneakers and well-worn basketballs, ready for friendly matches. Others popped by in sandals, just hoping to shoot a few hoops. A handful of teenagers joined in, showing off trick shots. On weekends, parents would gather on the sidelines, chatting and cheering their kids as the bright orange ball soared through the air. Among the regulars were Ethan Lopez, a lanky 7th grader with a mean jump shot, and his best friend, Brady Chun, who excelled at dribbling. They'd scrimmage with Alicia Park, a determined 8th grader who aimed to make her school's basketball team in the fall. Younger siblings often tagged along. 6-year-old twins shooting at the lowered rim, or a handful of elementary-age kids chasing rebounds. It was a small but tight-knit group that forged friendships across ages. Parents recognized the court as a boon, a place where children got exercise, learned teamwork, and stayed out of trouble. Better the kids bounce a ball outside than stare at screens all day, many reasoned. And for families who couldn't afford pricey sports clubs, the free access was a godsend. Maria Lopez, Ethan's mother, sometimes took an evening stroll to the court to supervise. She'd wave at other parents, who'd reciprocate with friendly nods. The air hummed with a sense of community. This is what a neighborhood should feel like, Maria often thought. A place to belong. Veronica Farnell, however, saw a different picture whenever she passed the court. She fixated on the occasional litter of empty water bottles or the sudden bounce of a ball that might strike the fence near her. She heard squeals and laughter, which to her ear was an irritating commotion. In rare moments when a ball escaped over the fence, rolling onto the sidewalk, she'd scowl or lecture any child who came to retrieve it. "Shouldn't you be mindful of your neighbors?" she'd say in a clipped tone. "Noise echoes, you know." And if a parent was present, she'd politely hint that repeated noise complaints could force the HOA to impose new restrictions. Some families try to mollify her, instructing children to keep the volume down or not play past certain hours. Others rolled their eyes at Veronica's demands, believing she was overstepping. Yet none suspected how far she might go in her crusade to silence that bouncing ball. The seeds of her malice were sown. In her mind, the court was a disturbance that deserved elimination, and if the HOA board wouldn't do it officially, maybe she would find a more covert way. At a monthly HOA board meeting, Veronica decided to present her case once more. The meeting took place in a modest community center, featuring plastic folding chairs and a long table at the front where board members sat. Only a handful of residents attended, the usual folks with landscaping concerns or wanting to propose small yard changes. When the floor opened for new business, Veronica cleared her throat and stood. "I'd like to address the ongoing noise and safety issues at the basketball court behind Maple Grove Playground." She spoke in a tone suggesting an urgent crisis. On multiple occasions, children have played well into the evening, generating disruptive noise. There's also the potential hazard of stray balls damaging nearby property or injuring bystanders. I believe we must implement new rules. The board president, Mark Davies, a mild-mannered accountant, pressed his lips together. "Veronica, we've discussed this. The court is part of the community's recreational area. As far as I know, no serious incidents have been reported." Veronica tapped a pen on her notepad. "Serious or not, the cumulative effect is harmful. Some neighbors," she paused, avoiding mention that it was mostly her, "complain they can't enjoy an evening in peace without the constant thud of basketballs. Why should the comfort of many be sacrificed for a few?" Cheryl Manning, a fellow board member, shook her head. "We also have neighbors who appreciate that their children can play sports near home. Let's not dismiss them. The court is well used and fosters community." Veronica's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps we could enforce time limits. No bouncing after 6 p.m., or we lock the gates. Or we could reduce the fence height or remove it entirely, so it's less of a specialized facility." A small ripple of confusion spread in the room. Removing the fence might cause more runaway balls, not fewer. Mark Davies sighed. "Veronica, we can't cap usage at 6 o'clock in summertime. Kids play after dinner. The board has no consensus for that, and we don't have the budget to alter the court drastically. The majority of community feedback actually supports the basketball area. Unless you have data proving widespread complaints, we can't justify significant changes." Veronica tried to protest, but the other members, including Cheryl, shook their heads. "This matter has been addressed multiple times," Cheryl said gently. "We concluded that the court remains open until the posted park closure, 9 p.m. If that's an issue, residents can propose an amendment, but they need majority support. Right now, that support isn't there." Veronica's face grew taut. She forced a tight smile, then sat. The board moved on to other topics: leaky sprinklers, landscaping budgets, and an upcoming community barbecue. For the rest of the meeting, Veronica fumed in silence. In her mind, the refusal to act was an affront. If the HOA wouldn't fix the problem, she might have to solve it herself. Afterward, as she left, she overheard a couple of neighbors praising the basketball court. "Our kids love it. It's one of the best parts of living here," someone said. Veronica's scowl deepened. Something told her that she'd just lost the official route. But that didn't mean she'd given up on her mission. 2 weeks after that board meeting, Veronica's simmering frustration reached a boil. The weather was exceptionally warm, driving more kids to the basketball court to spend long afternoons shooting hoops. The bounce of rubber on asphalt felt constant, especially from Veronica's vantage in her living room. Even with the windows closed, she claimed she could hear it echoing down the street. A relentless, maddening beat. One evening, around 7 p.m., a spirited game of 3-on-3 was underway, mostly teenagers and a couple of younger siblings passing the ball around. They hooped whenever someone sank a shot. The scoreboard was imaginary, but the competition was real. The chain-link fence rattled occasionally if a missed shot hit it. From her yard, Veronica glared in silent fury. Then she noticed a single loose ball roll under the fence and across the sidewalk. One of the teenage boys sprinted after it, passing in front of her yard. The boy offered a polite nod, retrieving the ball. But in Veronica's eyes, that small moment crystallized her anger. They were trespassing too close. She was done waiting. Storming to her kitchen, Veronica rummaged through cabinets. Her scowl turned into a strange grin as she found a large jug of cooking oil, left over from a big holiday feast. A bizarre plan formed in her mind. If the kids insisted on playing, maybe she could discourage them by making the court unsafe for a while. She'd cause enough chaos that the parents would hopefully yank their kids off the court voluntarily. It was a rash idea, a half-baked scheme fueled by resentment. But Veronica's sense of righteousness blinded her to how extreme or dangerous it might be. In her twisted logic, no one would be seriously harmed if the surface was too slick. Maybe a few minor slips would drive the families away for good. Meanwhile, no one would suspect her. Late that night, after the children had gone home, she crept out of her house. Armed with the jug, she walked the perimeter of the fence, ensuring no one was watching. The moon cast faint illumination on the battered asphalt inside. Carefully, she unlatched a side gate that was usually closed but not locked. Few realized it even existed. Step by cautious step, Veronica ventured onto the court, tension thrumming in her chest. She unscrewed the jug's cap and began drizzling cooking oil around the free throw line and beneath the hoop. The faint glug of oil hitting asphalt filled the air. The rancid smell made her stomach twist, but she pressed on, determined. She poured in arcs, imagining how it would coat the surface with a slippery sheen. After several minutes, the jug was half empty. Veronica realized it would be enough. She wanted the slickness to be obvious, but not too glaring. In her mind, this would be her secret sabotage. She tiptoed back to the gate, quietly locked it, and hustled home in the shadows. Back inside, her heart pounded. She tried to quell her trembling hands by reminding herself, just a little sabotage to keep them from playing. The moral weight of what she'd done barely registered, overshadowed by her belief that she was protecting the neighborhood from incessant noise. Dawn was hours away. The shiny film of cooking oil began seeping into the coarse asphalt, forming slick patches. And the stage was set for a morning that would shock everyone who arrived at the court. Families, kids, and the entire Willow Bend Acres community. Saturday morning broke clear and bright. By 9 a.m., a few kids were already at the basketball court, excited to start a weekend pickup game. Ethan Lopez was first, bouncing his orange ball as he pushed open the gate. Alicia arrived moments later, tying her hair into a ponytail and dropping her water bottle near the fence. Neither initially noticed the faint sheen on parts of the asphalt. The court had patches of old stains from puddles or spilled sports drinks, so little discoloration didn't register. The kids started their routine warm-up, free throw shots, and casual dribbles. Ethan attempted a short jump shot near the free throw line, and that was when the sabotage took effect. His sneakers slid out from under him with a squeak, sending him crashing onto his backside. Alicia gasped, running over. "Are you okay?" Ethan winced, rubbing his elbow. "What the? Did I slip on something?" He put a hand on the asphalt, and it came away oily. A look of confusion and alarm crossed his face. "It's greasy." "Ugh, gross." They quickly discovered large areas of the court were coated in some kind of oil, especially near the hoop and free throw line. Alicia nearly slipped herself while stooping to check. "This is so weird. Did someone spill something?" More kids trickled in, each one reacting with shock. Soon word spread. Parents got text messages from their children. The court is covered in oil. It's unplayable. Maria Lopez rushed over to see for herself, heart pounding at the thought that her son might have been hurt. The scene was unsettling. The once ordinary asphalt reeked of rancid cooking oil, forming a slick hazard. Concerned parents told their kids to stay off the court to avoid injuries. A few wondered if it was a bizarre prank or an act of vandalism. "This can't be an accident," muttered Maria, kneeling to inspect the residue. "Someone must have done this on purpose." She felt anger swirl in her chest, mixing with worry for the kids. By mid-morning, a small crowd of neighbors had gathered around the fence, murmuring in disbelief. Some suggested calling the HOA or even the police. Others worried about how to clean it up. The question on everyone's lips: who would do such a thing? In the distance, a certain figure lurked behind drawn curtains. Veronica Farnell. She watched the commotion with a twisted sense of satisfaction, though tinged with anxiety. She hadn't considered that it would cause so much immediate outrage. A part of her felt a flicker of fear. If they discovered her involvement, her reputation could be destroyed. But for now, she rationalized that no one could prove anything. She'd left no direct evidence. All that mattered was stopping the basketball games, right? Yet Veronica underestimated the resilience of the families she'd targeted. Rather than shrugging and abandoning the court, parents and neighbors would soon band together, determined to salvage the beloved play space. And in that collective resolve, they'd find the strength to fight back against sabotage, whatever its source. By noon that day, a plan emerged among the parents. After calling the non-emergency police line to report vandalism, they realized waiting for official investigators might take days. Meanwhile, the court would remain unusable. So a volunteer cleanup group formed on the spot. They gathered supplies, buckets of soapy water, brooms, old rags, even cat litter to absorb the grease. Ryan Shun, Brady's father, recalled that cat litter could soak up oil spills effectively. A neighbor offered a stack of newspapers to cover especially slick spots. Another neighbor suggested pressure washers. Over a dozen people joined in, determined to restore the court. As they arrived with supplies, they had to ensure no child ventured onto the slippery surface. Alicia and Ethan stood by the fence, warning stragglers, while grown-ups spread cat litter in the largest puddles of cooking oil. Others scrubbed vigorously with detergent and water, though the asphalt's texture made it hard to remove the oil fully. "It's soaking into the asphalt. This might take a while," grumbled Carl Weaver, father of one of the younger players. He poured more soapy water. "Who would do this? It's beyond a prank." Maria Lopez agreed, shaking her head. "It's downright malicious. If a kid had fallen and hit their head, this is dangerous." As the cat litter and elbow grease slowly lifted some of the oil, a uniformed police officer arrived to take a formal statement. He surveyed the scene, asked about security cameras, and jotted notes. "No cameras in this area, correct?" he asked. The playground lacked official CCTV, and no houses directly faced the backside of the fence. One neighbor promised to check her doorbell footage, but it was angled too far away to see the gate at night. Without leads, the officer could only file a vandalism report. "We'll keep an eye out," he offered, though it was clear the case wouldn't be easy to crack. Some parents suspected it might be teenagers pulling a prank, but others had a different hunch. Maria, for one, had seen Veronica's hostility. She quietly voiced her suspicion to a few neighbors. The mere mention of Veronica brought nods and worried frowns. Had she really stooped this low? The cleanup continued into the late afternoon. After hours of scrubbing and washing, the immediate puddles vanished, but the court felt tacky and faint oily patches remained. It was safer than before, yet hardly ideal for basketball. A few kids tested dribbling, but the ball sometimes picked up a greasy film. Sighing, the parents realized they might need a more professional approach to fully restore the asphalt. Still, there was a silver lining. The shared effort forged a stronger bond among the families. People who barely knew each other worked side by side, exchanging stories and jokes, united by outrage and determination. In that sense, The saboteur had unwittingly fueled a new spirit of community. And as they tidied up, some parents spoke in hushed but urgent voices about how to prevent another such act, and how to improve the court so no one could sabotage it so easily. The day after the cleanup, a small group of parents and community members convened in Maria Lopez's living room. They included Carl Weaver, Ryan Shun, and a few others who'd helped clean. Over coffee, they discussed next steps. Even with all that scrubbing, the surface is still slick in places, Carl said. My son tried dribbling. The ball got oily again. Maybe we can keep rescrubbing, but that's not a long-term fix. Ryan nodded. We might need a new top coat for the asphalt, something that repels oil or at least is easier to clean. Some sports surfaces are specially made to be slip-resistant. Might cost a chunk of change, though. Maria set down her mug, eyes thoughtful. Remember that years ago, the court was built through fundraising. Maybe we can do something similar. If the HOA doesn't have the budget or the will to fix it, we can raise money ourselves to resurface it. And while we're at it, we could expand it slightly. There's a bit of extra space. More room for the kids to play. A flicker of excitement passed around the group. A full-scale refurbishment could transform the battered old court into a safer, better facility, one that might deter future vandals. If someone tried pouring oil on a professional non-slip surface, the sabotage might be less effective. Carl furrowed his brow. But we need the HOA's permission, right? The court is on community land. They might balk at the idea. Ryan shrugged. After the sabotage, I suspect the board would be open to improvements, especially if we handle the fundraising. They love volunteer-driven enhancements, so they don't have to foot the bill. It might actually help. Maria exhaled. And if certain individuals try to oppose us, we'll have community support on our side. People were outraged by the oil. I think many will pitch in money or labor to make the court better than ever. Thus a plan formed. They'd gather estimates from local sports surfacing companies, figure out the cost of a new top coat that was slip-resistant, and possibly expand the asphalt a few feet to allow more playing area. Then, they'd approach the HOA board with a formal proposal. If the board approved, a fundraising campaign would begin, bake sales, online donations, maybe a neighborhood carnival. But underlying the excitement was a quiet sense of indignation. None of this would be necessary if not for the sabotage. Maria caught herself glaring out the window, recalling Veronica's many scowls toward the court. She had no proof yet, but her gut told her that Karen was behind this. One day, Maria hoped that truth would come out. In the meantime, they'd respond to hate with creation, making the court bigger and better than ever. Over the next week, the idea of resurfacing and expanding the basketball court swept through Willow Bend Acres like a breath of fresh air. The parents behind the plan started a Save Our Court campaign, distributing flyers, posting on neighborhood Facebook group, and going door to door. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Nearly everyone who had kids or grandkids or believed in community sports pledged support. Even some residents without children saw the value. A neighbor who'd once played college basketball offered to donate a portion of his savings. Another older couple said they missed hearing the kids laugh after the sabotage scare. It just doesn't feel right seeing them forced away, they said. Within days, the parents had a list of potential donors. Meanwhile, they secured estimates from a local company specializing in sports court surfaces. The quote wasn't cheap, but it came with an option to use a non-slip, acrylic-based top layer, similar to what tennis courts had. The cost also included patching cracks and leveling the asphalt before applying the final coat. If they wanted to expand the court by a few feet on each side, that meant more materials and labor, but the parents felt it was worth it. A bigger playing area would accommodate multiple games, reducing crowding. And the new surface would be less vulnerable to oil sabotage. Ryan scheduled a meeting with the HOA board to present the formal proposal. Cheryl Manning, the board member who'd been supportive of the court, seemed excited. This might be a chance to transform that old asphalt into a real gem, she told him on the phone. Mark Davies, the board president, was also inclined to support it, so long as the parents handled most of the funding. We'll see how the vote goes, he said cautiously. Only one wild card remained. Veronica Farnell, or Karen. Rumors spread that she was strongly opposed to any project that would encourage more basketball. She reportedly believed that if a sabotage had scared the kids away, the last thing they should do was make the court nicer. Nevertheless, she had yet to voice that publicly. In the days leading up to the board meeting, a wave of optimism buoyed the families. They posted a fundraiser online with a modest goal. Donations rolled in quickly, some from within Willowbend Acres, others from supportive friends outside. The sabotage story had circulated, rousing sympathy. The kids themselves contributed from their piggy banks. Alicia's father wrote a touching note. "We must stand up for safe, positive spaces for our youth." Maria, Ryan, Carl, and others felt a surge of hope. They refused to let fear or sabotage dictate their neighborhood. If all went well, they'd soon have an official green light to begin the transformation. But they also knew Veronica might unleash her negativity. The question was whether her voice could outweigh a community that had grown more unified than ever. The long-awaited evening arrived. The HOA board meeting took place in the same community center as always, but this time it was far more crowded than usual. Word had spread about the parents' proposal to resurface and expand the basketball court, and many supporters turned up, ready to cheer the idea or speak in favor. At the front table sat the board: President Mark Davies, Treasurer Alan Perkins, Secretary Cheryl Manning, and the rest, including Veronica Farnell. As folks settled into the plastic chairs, a hum of excitement filled the room. When a meeting opened, Mark Davies briefly reviewed standard agenda items, budget updates, landscaping schedules, etc. Then came the highlight: new business, basketball court improvement proposal. He invited the parent group to present. Maria Lopez approached the microphone, notes in hand. "Good evening. My name is Maria, and I'm here with many residents who care about our children's recreational space. The basketball court behind Maple Grove Playground was recently vandalized with cooking oil, making it unsafe. We cleaned it, but it's still compromised. We'd like to propose a full resurfacing with a slip-resistant top coat, plus a modest expansion to allow more playing room." She motioned to Ryan, who handed out printed estimates and a diagram of the expanded layout. "We've gathered donations," Maria continued. "We can cover the majority of expenses ourselves. We only ask the HOA to approve the usage of the additional few feet of land beyond the current court and to let us handle the project through a reputable contractor. We believe this upgrade benefits everyone, promoting exercise, community engagement, and safety." "Thank you." Applause rippled through the audience. Mark Davies thanked Maria, acknowledging her efforts. Cheryl Manning commended the thorough fundraising. A few neighbors raised their hands to voice support. "This is exactly what we need," said one. "It'll keep kids active and safe," said another. Finally, Mark opened the floor for board members' questions or comments. That was when Veronica Farnell stood, lips pressed tight. A hush fell. Everyone knew she disliked the court, but few anticipated what she'd say next. Veronica's voice was cool. "I appreciate the effort behind this proposal. However, we must consider the negatives. An improved court may draw more outsiders or intensify noise levels. Some residents near the playground find the ball bouncing disruptive. If the surface is larger and in better condition, we risk more frequent usage, potentially from dawn until dusk. Has anyone considered the strain on parking or potential liability for the HOA if injuries occur?" A rumble of disapproval coursed through the crowd. Veronica continued, "Moreover, the funds required might be better spent on other pressing community issues, like landscaping or upgraded lighting. Just because a certain group of residents wants a bigger basketball court doesn't mean the entire neighborhood must endure greater disturbance." Maria inhaled sharply, about to retort, but Mark Davies interjected. "We'll consider all viewpoints. The question is, do we want to permanently close or degrade the court? Or do we support maintaining it as a beneficial amenity? Our surveys indicate many families value it." A father in the audience stood. "My kids have played there for years without any issues, except for this recent sabotage. Expanding it won't be a burden, it'll be a benefit." Veronica's eyes flickered with barely disguised scorn. We keep calling it sabotage, but there's no definitive proof. For all we know, it could have been an accidental spill. A wave of protests erupted. People insisted it was obviously intentional, citing the volume of oil. Veronica shrugged, feigning skepticism. It's just speculation. Despite her attempts, the majority of the board and the crowd seemed supportive of the new plan. Cheryl Manning spoke firmly. Veronica, we're aware of your concerns, but the board's job is to represent the entire community. We have a robust showing of support for the court. Unless there's a compelling reason to deny the improvement, we should consider approving it, especially since the parents have offered to handle the costs and contractor. When the board called a vote, Veronica cast the lone dissent. The motion to approve the court resurfacing and modest expansion passed 6-1. Applause thundered. Maria and her allies exchanged relieved smiles. They'd cleared a major hurdle. Veronica sank in her seat, face blank. Her official path to kill the basketball court had failed again. As the meeting adjourned, Mark Davies congratulated the parent group. Neighbors milled about, congratulating each other. Yet in the back, Veronica stood quietly, fists clenched at her sides. She locked eyes with Maria across the crowd for an instant, sending a glare that said, "This isn't over." But if Veronica thought she could sabotage the new project, she was about to realize the community's growing solidarity made them stronger, and her clandestine meddling was nearing its limits. With the HOA's approval, the parent group moved quickly. They scheduled the sports surfacing contractor, paid deposits from their fundraiser account, and organized volunteer days to clear debris around the existing asphalt. The plan was straightforward. Court expansion, remove a small strip of grass on each side, extending the asphalt by about 4 feet total. Surface repair, patch cracks, level out uneven areas. Non-slip coating, apply a specialized acrylic top coat in a muted blue or green color, with bright white lines for boundaries. New hoop accessories, possibly upgrade the existing hoops and backboards if funds allowed. Excitement buzzed among the kids. Alicia boasted that she'd practice daily on the new surface. Ethan teased that with the bigger court, they'd host mini tournaments. Even some older teens volunteered to help with the initial site prep. The sabotage had ironically galvanized them to improve what once was just a worn asphalt pad. As construction day neared, a strange apprehension gripped Maria Lopez. She suspected that if Veronica Farnell had poured cooking oil before, she might try to disrupt the project now. But a small measure of security came from the fact that the contractor's crew would be on site, and neighbors had promised to keep an eye out. Sure enough, on the morning the construction crew arrived, a minor obstacle appeared. The fence gate's lock had been jammed with super glue. The foreman discovered it when he tried to open the gate to bring in machinery. Furious, he called Maria, who arrived at once. The lock was destroyed. They had to cut it off with bolt cutters. While the contractor insisted these pranks happen occasionally, Maria had no doubt who was behind it. Still, they pressed on, removing the gate entirely for the duration of the project. If Veronica had hoped a glued lock would halt them, she was mistaken. By midday, workers had begun removing the old chain-link fence segments to temporarily open the perimeter. Volunteers carted away grass and sod. Others raked the subsoil. The contractor measured carefully, marking lines for the new asphalt extension. For 2 days, the area bustled with activity. Children stood by, watching big machines pour fresh asphalt in strips along the edges. Once that's set, the workers patched cracks in the existing surface, smoothing them over. The result was a coherent, larger slab waiting for the final top coat. Throughout it all, Veronica was nowhere to be seen publicly, though some neighbors noticed her car passing by slowly, as if checking on the progress. If she planned more sabotage, she'd have to be cautious. The site was constantly occupied, volunteers and professionals milling about. Her hostility found no easy opening. Near the end of the second day, the contractor confirmed that the new base was ready for the acrylic coating. "We'll start applying it tomorrow," he said, patting the asphalt. "Should be done in a few days. Then we'll paint lines, reinstall the fence, and you'll have a brand new, slick, well, non-slick court." A cheer went up from the parents. The sabotage had not derailed them. In fact, it only made them more determined. Soon, the kids would have a safer, bigger basketball court than ever. The only question was whether Veronica Farnell had one last card to play, or if her sabotage days were over. On the eve of the topcoat application, the workers left the site around 6 p.m., cautioning volunteers to let the fresh asphalt cure. Overnight, they'd be ready to apply the acrylic in the morning. A handful of parents decided to rotate watch duty, taking shifts to stroll by the court, just in case anyone tried something. Ryan Chun took the 8 to 10 p.m. shift, walking his dog around the playground. By 10:15, when he left, all seemed quiet. The next volunteer, however, got pulled away unexpectedly for a family emergency, leaving the court unwatched from around 10:30 onward. That gap proved fateful. At dawn, a horrifying sight awaited the first parent who arrived. Someone had scrawled large graffiti across the newly laid asphalt, using bright red spray paint. Random lines, crude swirls, and expletives marred the surface. In places, the paint was thick enough to seep in. There was also a scattered pile of nails left near the entrance, presumably to puncture tires if a car rolled onto the site. Furious, Maria and Ryan quickly called the contractor. The workers, upon arriving, shook their heads in disbelief. Removing spray paint from fresh asphalt could be tricky, especially if it had soaked in. They attempted solvents and power washers, but the red pigment clung stubbornly. One foreman muttered curses, lamenting the delays. Police were summoned again, but without cameras or witnesses, the culprit remained unknown. Still, the pattern was clear. It's definitely targeted, concluded the investigating officer. You've got an enemy who doesn't want this court finished. The contractor explained that they could still proceed, but some extra patching or an additional layer of asphalt might be needed to hide the worst paint. Another day or two of work, plus additional cost. A hush fell over the parents, who realized their fundraiser might not cover these unexpected repairs. A flicker of despair coursed through them. They were so close to a victory, yet someone, almost certainly Veronica, seemed determined to sabotage them at every turn. However, an unexpected wave of generosity arose. Neighbors who'd heard about the new vandalism stepped up, offering extra donations. The local hardware store gave a discount on supplies for the cleanup. Even the contractor decided to waive part of the additional labor fee, touched by the community's plight. By midday, they had enough resources to press on. The foreman placed an emergency order for more asphalt patch. Volunteers formed a new nightly watch schedule with no gaps. We won't let them get near it again, Ryan Chun promised. People took shifts in pairs, armed with flashlights and phones. Seeing the outpouring of support renewed everyone's determination. If anything, the fresh vandalism only cemented the community's resolve. They would not be bullied or sabotaged. The final stage of the project loomed, and they refused to let it fail. That night, watchers reported no incidents, presumably deterring any further sabotage. By the following morning, the contractor had covered the graffiti-laden spots with an extra layer. Then, around noon, they began rolling out the non-slip acrylic topcoat, a dark green color for the main area, with crisp white boundary lines. As it dried, the entire slab took on a professional, polished look. Volunteers admired the transformation. The battered old court was gone, replaced by a smooth, vibrant surface ready for basketball. The day of the court's reopening arrived with bright sunshine and a sense of triumph. Parents organized a small ribbon-cutting ceremony that afternoon. They decorated the fence with balloons, set up a refreshment table with lemonade and cookies, and invited everyone in Willow Bend Acres to attend. Shortly before 4 p.m., a sizable crowd gathered. The new chain-link fence gleamed, the locks replaced, and the newly expanded asphalt beckoned with its fresh green coating. At the center stood 2 sturdy hoops with brand-new nets, donated by a local sporting goods store. Kids jostled excitedly, basketballs in hand, itching to play. Mark Davies from the HOA board took the makeshift podium first. "I'd like to congratulate our residents for coming together," he said. "Despite setbacks, you persevered and created a wonderful upgraded facility. This is truly a community achievement. Applause rippled through the crowd. Then, Cheryl Manning handed oversized scissors to Maria Lopez, who, along with a couple of kids, cut the ceremonial ribbon draped across the court's gate. Cheers and laughter rang out. Kids flooded onto the pristine surface, dribbling, passing, and testing the new bounce. Some tried free throws, marveling at the crisp lines. Others simply squealed with delight at the bigger space, less crowding, and no slickness underfoot. Among the onlookers, a certain figure stood grimly on the sidelines, Veronica Farnell. She wore a forced smile, but her eyes betrayed frustration. If she'd hoped sabotage would shut the court down, she'd failed. And now, the court wasn't just repaired, it was upgraded beyond what it had ever been, with widespread neighborhood support. More kids were playing than before. Maria noticed her presence and gave a polite nod, though inwardly she seethed at the likely vandal. Veronica offered a stiff nod back, then sidled off before the formal speeches ended. She left quickly, as if unable to stomach seeing a project she despised being celebrated. In truth, a quiet rumor had spread that Veronica was the prime suspect behind the oil fiasco and the graffiti. More than a few neighbors talked about her superglue lock sabotage. Some demanded the police question her further, but without direct evidence, authorities couldn't act. Still, public opinion weighed heavily against her. She found her influence on the HOA board waning. Residents gave her cold shoulders, no longer intimidated by her old tactics. As the day turned into early evening, the upgraded basketball court rang with the rhythmic bounce, bounce of kids' shoes, and the sweet swoosh of nets. Parents relaxed on newly placed benches, chatting and sharing a sense of relief. The sabotage crisis had ended not in defeat, but in a resounding community victory. In the ensuing weeks, the refurbished basketball court became a central hub of Willow Bend Acres. Families brought not just basketballs, but sometimes badminton nets or lawn chairs to enjoy the communal spirit. Teens organized mini-tournaments on Saturdays, collecting small entry fees that they donated to local charities. Younger kids gained confidence trying layups on the improved, even surface. The fact that someone had tried to destroy the court lingered as a cautionary tale. Parents reminded kids to stay vigilant, keep the gate locked after hours, and note any suspicious activity. The nighttime watch eventually eased, though a few residents still strolled by out of habit. Everyone was determined never to be caught off guard again. Meanwhile, HOA board meetings took on a different tone. With the basketball court fiasco resolved, the members focused on other community improvements, installing new playground mulch, repainting signage, scheduling a neighborhood block party. Veronica Farnell attended, but spoke less, especially about the court. Her single-minded mission to rid Willow Bend Acres of noisy basketball had backfired so spectacularly that no one was inclined to give her proposals any serious weight. The rumor mill suggested she might step down from the board at the next election, having lost face. Some insisted she should face consequences for sabotage, but lacking legal proof, the best recourse was shunning her attempts at controlling the neighborhood. Veronica found herself isolated, whereas the families had grown stronger, forging deeper bonds through adversity. One crisp autumn morning, after a lively game, Alicia Park practiced free throws alone. The new lines on the court gleamed. She dribbled with confidence, recalling how only weeks ago the surface had been coated in oil. Now she stood on a professional-grade floor, an environment that made her dream of playing on her school team all the more real. Maria Lopez, passing by with groceries, paused to watch. She smiled, heart swelling with pride at the transformation. The entire fiasco had shown her that even in the face of malicious acts, communities can rise together, turning negativity into something better. Months later, the revitalized basketball court remained a testament to Willow Bend Acres' resilience. Parents and children moved forward with daily life, enjoying a neighborhood that felt closer than ever. Some credited the sabotage for sparking a new wave of unity. After all, had the court never been oiled, they might have stayed complacent with cracked asphalt and minimal lines. Now, They had a state-of-the-art playing surface that rivaled small school gyms. As for Veronica Karen Farnell, she retreated into a subdued role. She still occasionally found fault with minor issues, someone's lawn height or an off-palette paint color, but her threats carried less weight. The board, as well as the residents, had seen her true colors in the midst of the sabotage scandal. Even if she never admitted guilt, the community held its own quiet verdict. One late afternoon, a spontaneous pickup game materialized on the court. Youths, adults, even a couple of seniors who wanted to shoot short-range baskets. The expansions allowed multiple half-court scrimmages to coexist. Laughter and cheers rose under the golden sunlight. Nobody worried about slipping or sabotage. They only focused on the moment. The friendly competition, the sense of belonging, the shared pride in reclaiming their space from the clutches of negativity. On the sidelines, Maria and Ryan spotted each other and grinned. "Remember when we found it covered in oil? Look at it now," Ryan mused. "We're so fortunate. The kids have this wonderful place." Maria nodded, recalling the many hours spent fundraising, scrubbing grease, confronting the HOA, and dealing with vandalism. All that effort felt worthwhile as she watched Alicia sink a perfect three-pointer, greeted by whoops and applause. The new non-slip surface, the fresh lines, and the extra room made the game flow seamlessly. Down the street, a curtain fluttered behind a window where Veronica Farnell might have been watching. But the distant sound of a bouncing basketball no longer carried the weight of sabotage or conflict. It was an echo of a community that refused to be silenced, that turned adversity into progress. Veronica might scowl to herself, but her petty war was over. The bigger, better basketball court stood as proof. In that final swirl of joy and relief, Willowbend Acres found its happy ending. The children's squeals, the squeak of sneakers on the new court, and the cheerful greetings among neighbors all testified that unity could triumph over sabotage. Indeed, the place that once brimmed with tension had discovered a deeper harmony, one formed by everyday people determined to protect what they loved, no matter how much cooking oil or spray paint tried to stand in their way.